When it comes to the topic of civil service, Malaysians generally share the same sentiment.
Milkman! Piano lady!
Must suppress rage.
Election after election, the people were promised a more efficient civil service. But it seems like whoever we vote in, this issue never gets crossed out from the to-do list. The public services of our dreams are always transparent, efficient, and helpful. Now, I'm not just talking about how fast you can renew your passport and IC, although that did improve to some extent. But we're aspiring to become a high-income nation by 2024. So that alone isn't going to cut it. According to the latest World Bank Economic Monitor report, our public sector's performance has declined since 2014. World Bank lead public sector specialist Rajni Bajpai pointed out that Malaysia is still above in the region for government effectiveness. But in 2018, the performance is below that of between 1991 and 2014. If we take the average of that period, it was actually better than in 2018, meaning our performance is declining. Numbers aside, what does it really tell us? There are two parts to the answer. One is quality, the other is about size. Quality-wise, it means that efficiency has largely stagnated. So not worse, but not better either. Meanwhile, the World Bank says there are other indicators in which Malaysia ranked even below the region, including in terms of accountability, impartiality, and openness. Employment bias in the civil service is still rampant, and there's a strong public perception about its lack of neutrality. We all know that for any organization to thrive, you need a strong team to run the show. So, who would want to work for a company that's known to be unfair? And in this case, working for the government. Most of the rot in public sector we see today comes from decades of politicizing civil servants. University of Tasmania's Asia Institute Director James Chin explains that when the British left the Malayan civil service, it was secular, neutral, and largely non-political. The previous UMNO regime deliberately politicized the civil service by using racial and political criteria for top civil service positions. And as the civil service became more Islamic in character, non-Malays were alienated from leadership positions, fundamentally changing the character of civil service. In other words, unless you fit the mold, there's limited career growth. Now, let's talk about size. Malaysia's population stands at about 32 million, and its public service employs around 1.7 million people. This means there are 5.3 public servants to serve every 100 Malaysian citizens. Close to one-third of civil servants are employed in the education service alone, while another 14% work in the health sector. The General Federal Public Service, or JPA, employs 39% of them. Now, the more people you hire, the more you pay in salaries. The World Bank noted that Malaysia's wage bill as a share of GDP has been creeping up over the last 20 years. It used to be 17.6% in 2002, and it climbed to a peak of 29.3% in 2017 and a whopping 34.3% last year. Advanced countries like Canada only spends 13.7%, Norway 12.5%, Australia 10.6%, and closer to home, South Korea only spends 9.6% of their GDP on paying the civil servants. The significant increase in the wage bill in Malaysia since 2010 is because more civil servants were hired, more posts were created, and more contract staff were converted into regular employees. And of course, there was an increase in salaries and allowances. This begs the question, is it worth it? As the world is becoming more sophisticated, we need the public sector to support the changes too. Just like 10 years ago, JPJ didn't have to deal with things like Grab and Uber, but now they do. So going forward, the government will need to hire more highly skilled labour to join the public sector. And smart people are expensive. It simply isn't sustainable to rack up the wage bill without limits. Instead, we should be looking for ways to get value for money. For instance, look at the Department of Statistics Malaysia. It consists of over 85% of low-skilled, clerical and support staff and less than 15% of professional and managerial positions. True, you don't want a top-heavy management structure. But in an age where we're competing against foreign labor and trying to achieve a high-income nation status, we shouldn't have a low-skilled workforce. I'm talking about re-strategizing, upskilling staff with potential, improving productivity and efficiency. Employees who do not make the cut can undergo training programs so they can employ their newfound skills elsewhere. And some of the money that would have gone to their salaries can go towards rewarding the people who did make the cut. Take the Dutch Statistics Department, for example. After its modernization exercise, it employed 40% less people, but output increased by 50%. It now has a lower total budget, more diverse array of products and services, and cut down the firm's data reporting burden. Now, time after time, it's proven that in both public and private sector, that hiring based on merits, coupled with the right technology, can lead to a boost in productivity and cut down wastages. I know the road to reform in the public sector is a long and tedious journey, but Malaysians already did their part on voting for change. So it's time to get things moving now and more aggressively. Just saying.